there is actually a neuroscience beyond unconscious bias, and that's why we all have it, like I said. And why, and we're going to discuss this more next time when we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence. So the brain, and I think we touched on that the last time too, the brain consists of 3 different layers. So like the bottom layer is called the reptilian, and this is what we share with reptiles. And it's only for survival. So this is where we have our breathing centers and whatever helps us survive. So this is, like we say, or we call it the amygdala, or the reptilian, or the lower part of the brain. And then we had a second part that grew on top of it, like this, and it's called the mammalian, that we share with the other mammals, that is responsible for our emotions, like empathy, and it has also responsible for our autonomy. And then we have a third layer, like this, that basically evolved itself to existence to give more thinking capacity to human beings. So only human beings have that. So base part, the second part, and the third part that covers everything. It's called the neocortex. And the neocortex has to do with our awareness, perceptual awareness, our thought, our language, our consciousness, and our analytical and logical thinking, as well as decision making. The problem is that the 3 parts of the brain acts against each other. So the lower part, or the survival part, is physical. The second part, or the mammalian part, is emotional. And the third, or neocortex part, is analytical thinking. And they work against each other. They don't work usually in alignment till we are aware of that. So sometimes we say, I feel like doing this, but if I think about it, maybe I shouldn't. And that's where the conflict is between the 3 layers of the brain. But believe it or not, the strongest part of the brain is the lowest part, the part that has to do with survival, because it's our survival, so it defends us, so it comes like our alarm. So whenever our brain sees through the eyes or perceives a danger, it hijacks all resources from the brain. So no resources, like no brain, no enough blood, no enough oxygen goes to the neocortex here to think. And we act on the 3 F's, like I said: fight, flight, or freeze, because this is our survival mechanism. If we see a snake, we either step back and flight, or we fight it with a stick, or we freeze because fear takes over. So when our brain is hijacked, we can't think. And that's why people tell you, oh, I did all that and I destroyed all this because I was angry. And then I calmed down and saw it in a different way. The thing is, like when the amygdala hijacks, or the lower part of the brain hijacks all the resources, it floods the brain with cortisol. And cortisol is the stress hormone. So it makes you more tense. It accelerates your heartbeat. And that's why people that live on survival all the time, their stress level are high and their health conditions are not that good, because their heart rate is higher, their tension is up, they're always contracting, they're always basically in a war state. So, but the good news is this: the brain is very easily distracted. And the brain can be as easily reset as a laptop or a computer. When we want to reset, when our computer or our laptop hangs up and doesn't move anywhere, we just push a button to reset it. That's the same thing with our brain. It takes 30 seconds, just 30 seconds, to communicate between the lower brain and the upper brain. 30 seconds. So if we become aware of our triggers, we can, for example, practice deep breathing for 30 seconds. That will be 6 or 8 times. 6 to 8 times. So you actually inhale through your nose at the count of 4. You hold it on the count of 4, and you exhale from your mouth on the count of 8. And you do it 6 to 8 times. It will bring your system down, cortisol will diminish, and you get the happy hormones secreted in your brain. So everything comes down. You go medically, you go from something called the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system, where you move from the war state to the peace state. And you come down, and once you come down, you get the resources back to the upper brain, and you can think again. So we all can shift from wherever we are to 30 seconds. In 30 seconds, that's why we need to be aware of where we are. And why do we have unconscious bias? Because at any time, at any second, our brain is confronted with 11 million pieces or even more of information. Believe it or not, the light, like I'm sitting here, I'm looking at my slides, they have colors. Every single color that is on the slide have hundreds, if not thousands of pixels. Every pixel is an information. I'm looking at my surroundings. I'm looking at the windows and I see the trees. You know, all these are pieces of information that my brain is digesting as the same exact time automatically without us even knowing it. Imagine if you had to think every single time that you had to breathe. We breathe automatically, but it's in our brain. It's part of the information in our brain. So yes, we are exposed to 11 million pieces of information at any seconds, but our brain knows the significance or the meaning of only 40 to 50. So we go from 11 million down to 40 or 50. And it can process at the same time only 4 or 5, or 5 to 7. So we go from 11 million pieces of information to 5 or 7 pieces of information. So what it does, it looks for patterns and filters and experiences that we had before that we already categorized as important, so it will pay more attention to it. Like I'm sitting right here, the most important part for me is my screen because I'm communicating with you. But on the outside, the parameter of my vision, I'm seeing the light, I'm seeing the window, I'm seeing the trees, but I'm not really concentrating on that. It's just in my peripheral vision. What I deem important is this slide, and that's what I'm looking at right now. But because we depend on our patterns, on our filters, on our experience, that most of it has been downloaded from our parents, that we don't know what kind of blind spots we have, 99.9996% of mental processing is wrong if we don't think about it consciously, if we leave it to the subconscious. Because unconscious bias and the brain act as an efficiency tool or a danger detector, our brain never changed since the caveman. And the caveman had the survival skills of kill or be killed, that I have to fight for food resources, I have to protect my people, I have to reproduce, you know. So it was fight, flight, or freeze, and this never, our brain never evolved really from that. And that's why till today we have fear controls our life. Fear is the biggest motivator or demotivator in our life. You know, so what do? We look for shortcuts that are shaped by our preconceived culture, religion, politics, experience, and we put things and people in those boxes. We like remember when we talked about social categorization in the beginning? We categorize people and things in boxes like that automatically, like we breathe automatically, because If not, our brain will explode. The thing with the patterns and the filters and the experience and the unconscious bias, they are cumulative in nature, meaning that they keep adding up with time. And that's why the skills that we have today, we didn't have when we were children. If not, if we didn't have that cumulative in nature, we would have had to learn from the beginning every single time we needed to open a door. Or we had to relearn the words of happy birthday every single time we needed to sing happy birthday. That's why it's cumulative.